so much, everyone, for staying with us. So much confusion in Kano State, few hours before the local government elections. Well, Governor Yusuf says that the local government elections in the state will hold despite a court ruling prohibiting the process. Well, this is the background. On the 22nd of October, a federal high court in Kano restrained Mr. Sani Malunfashi, the chair of the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, KANSIEC, from conducting the October 26 LG polls, which is tomorrow. Now, in that ruling, the presiding judge said Malunfashi is unqualified to conduct the elections. This is the reason. Because he is a card-carrying member of the New Nigeria's People's Party, NNPP. And that 22nd, the Federal High Court in Kano restrained Mr. Malunfashi from conducting that election, which is supposed to hold tomorrow. Well, in all of this, the State High Court in Kano ordered the Kano State Independent Electoral Commission, KANSIEC, to proceed with the conduct of local government polls slated for Saturday, tomorrow. Sunusi Adomaji, the presiding judge, ruled that the Constitution empowers KANSIEC to conduct and supervise elections in the LGAs of Kano State. The judgment was delivered earlier today following an ex parte application filed by the commission. The Kano State Police Command says that it would comply with the court order restricting it from participating in the upcoming local government election, which is scheduled for tomorrow. That this was a statement released by the public relations officer of the Nigerian Police Force in Kano, Abdullahi Aruna. Take a listen to him.
You are very much aware of the court order received by the police command here in Kano. Item 9 of the order provided that the police should not participate in the coming local government election in the state. The police in Kano are not participating in the election. But however, it is our responsibility to ensure no breakdown of law and order in the state, and we are always alive to our responsibilities. The State Commissioner of Police, CP Salman Dogo Garba, has already directed all the command's operational commanders to ensure protection of life and property in Kano State.
That is Mr. Aruna, the PPRO of the police in Kano State. Well, so the police says it will. What about the order of today from the High Court? The Federal High Court in Kano said, look, Malunfashi cannot conduct the election because he's partisan. He's a card-carrying member of the NNPP. The order of court today says, go ahead. The Constitution permits you to be able to do so. That is KANSIEC going to the court to say, allow us to conduct these exercises tomorrow. It's looking like a situation in one state that you know in the south, isn't it? But let's get some perspectives on this one. We've heard that the governor has said that the exercise will continue tomorrow. The APC chairman in the state has said, look, if it continues, it's a call for anarchy. Mr. Mohammed Jamu is a special advisor to the Kano government on international and political affairs, public affairs. Is live for us in our Kano studio. It's good to see you, Mr. Jamu. Thanks so much indeed for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much, Shaun, and good evening, Nigerians.
What is happening in our dear state of Kano? Tomorrow is supposed to be the election, and one is wondering which one supersedes. The court order which says Mr. Malunfashi is partisan because he's a member of the NNPP, or the one that says, look, go ahead, a lower court, which is the High Court. Well, you will say those courts are court of coordinate jurisdiction. Well, then, where do you go from today going into tomorrow?
Well, thank you so much, Shaun. This is one very beautiful thing about Nigeria. The democracy in Nigeria is in murky waters and it's being tested. On the 25th of September 2024, the KANSIEC in Kano approached the State High Court with a very clear demand that they want the State High Court to interfere by stopping all the political parties from doing any action that will stop KANSIEC from performing its constitutional role. And on the 25th of September, the judge, in his own wisdom, delivered an order granting an interlocutory injunction pending the determination of the suit and granted all the reliefs as sought out by KANSIEC. So after that action has been given, some members of another political party decided to do otherwise by not adhering to the ruling of the court. And they approached the Federal High Court, demanding the Federal High Court to take some actions against KANSIEC. And judgment was delivered on Tuesday. Fortunately, the judge in Kano, who directed and granted the interlocutory injunction, decided to deliver his judgment today, which in his judgment, he has already decided that KANSIEC, as constituted, should go ahead and perform its statutory role of conducting the local government elections in Kano State. So this is the situation that we have faced in Kano State. The KANSIEC initially has already gone to court to get some reliefs, and they got their reliefs, while at the same time, the Federal High Court was equally granting reliefs to members of another political party, despite the order from the State High Court denying them the right, or rather stopping them from doing anything that will interfere in the responsibilities and duties of the KANSIEC. This is where it stands as it is today.
It's quite interesting because this looks like deja vu, isn't it? Because a few weeks ago, we saw this happen in Rivers State. And why the court is now being dragged into the murky political waters. And how this will pan out in the end, because if it goes back and forth, you drag the integrity of the judges into all of this matter. You drag the court into all of this matter. The politicians will walk away. They will leave the Nigerian people in so much of a dilemma. And at the end of the day, they leave the system messed up. The question is, will the election hold tomorrow? There is an order of court saying this man is a card-carrying member. Has that been settled? Has that been resolved? Could the government have removed that man and say, okay, since he's an obstacle, how can we move forward? Can we have another person who is deemed to be non-partisan to carry out that exercise?
Okay, Shaun, it has been settled in a plethora of cases by several judgments that were calibrated at different courts, either at the High Courts, at the Court of Appeal, or at the Supreme Court, whereby decisions were taken in such a way that grants the... Okay, let's start. Come again with your question again, please.
So my question is that the court, there's a substitute order of court to say this man is a card-carrying member of the NNPP. NNPP is the ruling party in the state. Is it possible the government appointed the NNP, the man in any state? Could he have stepped down so that another person would have carried out that duty?
Thank you, thank you. Well, when I said these cases have been calibrated at different courts, when somebody is being accused or suspected to be a member of a political party, how do you prove that that person is a member of a political party? Was the voters register or the register of the party displayed at the court? Were any evidence provided during the hearing of this case? I have been following and monitoring how this court case up to the point where judgment was given. And I can boldly tell you, Mr. Shaun, and Nigerians, that the register of NNPP was never displayed in open court. Neither was his voter's card or membership of the NNPP displayed in court. So I think that judgment was a judgment that can be cited as more like a hearsay judgment, which I am sure the KANSIEC has already, as a responsible body that respect the sanctity of the judiciary, they have already appealed that judgment at the Court of Appeal. The processes of the appeal has already been instituted. But I am telling you it is a faulty judgment, and that judgment will be set aside by the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court.
Now, so in all of this, I'm just saying that just to save time, energy, and what a view of the people of Kano State, is it difficult to say, stand aside, if this man is the encumbrance in this process, if this is the cause of the dispute, is it too difficult to say, step aside, let this other person conduct the exercise? That is just perhaps a street wisdom, which I thought that could also be applied, because one APC is saying it's a call for anarchy if Malunfashi goes ahead to conduct that election, because the governor said, no retreat, no surrender. The election must hold tomorrow.
Malunfashi stepping down is accepting that Malunfashi is a card-carrying member of NNPP. And I'm sure by the action taken by the Kano state government in this regard, that means the state government has not seen enough evidence that will show or prove that Malunfashi is a card-carrying member of the NNPP. And if anybody thought otherwise on this particular regard, then you can go to the court and prove it. Yes, a judgment was delivered against him at the court, but I am still telling you that this gentleman, there was no NNPP register that was displayed before the open court, or nobody was able to provide any proof beyond reasonable doubt that Malunfashi is a member of the NNPP. And once you ask him to step aside, then you have admitted being guilty of all actions, and you have no reason but to abide, but not to appeal, but to abide by all the directives as given by the judge.
Mr. Jamu, isn't government responsible to a larger percentage of the people? And isn't public policy actually for the interest of a larger majority? What is the interest of one man when the majority of interest of the majority of the people are involved? The question is, are you hearing what the opposition is saying? Opposition is saying that you, your friends and your colleagues in the NNPP and in government, you have strategized and you planned out how you are going to rig the election tomorrow using Malunfashi. How possible is it for you to just think about sacrificing Malunfashi for a moment, for one day, and allow the process for sake of transparency? Is that possible, Mr. Jamu? Because I'm just wondering, isn't this supposed to be for the interest of the Kano people anyways?
Yeah, that is absolutely possible, and no one has doubt that if anybody is supposed to be an encumbrance to anything that will further the lives and the living standard of the people, setting him aside is not anything but the best way to go about it. But in this particular matter, we are dealing with issues that mischief are just being introduced into the system so as to make it very difficult for Kano state government to be able to have a peaceful conduct of the local government elections as directed by the Supreme Court, granting the autonomy of the local government. This is where we are today. If this matter was a matter that the government has enough evidence that this person is a card-carrying member of the party, the government has no reason but to ease him out and let him go and appoint somebody who can be independent. We have several people in Kano. Kano is a state of more than 20 million people, and in this 20 million people, we have thousands of people that are equally competent enough to be able to lead the KANSIEC and conduct peaceful election. But this time around, it is the mischief. And as government cannot just fold its arms when the government sees a script being played against it. That is not even the target. The whole target is about the conduct of the election, and some people are hell-bent that no elections should be held in Kano. And already they have their script. Once we scale this, the next thing is they are going to court to get another order to stop the federal government from giving the local government funds, to stash them of funds to operate. So it is a script which we know, and everybody knows. It's nothing new.
Now, are you worried that the police says that they will follow the court order? They will obey the court order, the federal court, high court order?
Yeah, I have to be worried, but I am watching closely and keenly to see, because the state high court, which is the court of competent jurisdiction when it comes to issue of local government election at the state level, has already issued another order directing the police to be part of the processes of the election. And then, be that as it may, Mr. Sherwin, let us look at it from a critical point. Does the police need a court order to direct it from performing its own constitutional right? The Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has already laid out the functions of the police. And if you even go down in the Police Act, I can be able to quote it directly here, but even in the Police Act, it is well spelled out. These are the functions and the responsibilities of the police. Should any court come out now and tell the police, don't do your function? I don't know if there is any court that can determine policy matters. The only court that can determine policy matters or interpret what the Constitution is all about is the Supreme Court. And in this case, it is not the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court comes out and say, police don't perform your constitutional role, then we can assume a new law has been introduced, which needs ratification by the National Assembly. But I don't think the High Courts, they have the power within them to be able to direct the police against performing their constitutional role. And with this regard, I will advise the police to look at the Constitution and work rather with the Constitution, rather than going about with what is going against and contrary to the Constitution. Only the Supreme Court can be able to say something that goes contrary to the Constitution and can be complied, definitely. Yeah. Because if you don't even comply with it, what the Supreme Court does is either you accept it or you wait till you go to heaven and challenge it in heaven. So the Supreme Court is not talking here. It is the first court of instance. And I don't think the first court of instance can direct the police from performing their constitutional right. So we have appealed against that judgment, and another court has directed them to go ahead and comply and do the needful and do their constitutional function as required by law. So,
Mr. Jamu, I don't know, when you have this kind of confusion, I don't know whether the principle of equity will be relevant, because that principle says that where there are two equal equities, the first in time prevails. So if that principle is applicable here and can be substantiated in both positions of the court, that means the Federal High Court position will have to prevail in this sense, if that principle has to be applied. If that principle is to be applied, what do you say?
There was already an interlocutory injunction from the State High Court before the judgment of the State High Court, stopping anybody from interfering in all the processes that will stop a peaceful conduct of local government election. So the first instance is that order as granted by the judge in Kano State High Court. So that is the first. So if we are going with the first, then what comes from the State High Court, through by the interlocutory injunction, is what came first before the judgment of the Federal High Court.
All right, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight. Mr. Mohammed Jamu, who is the special advisor to the Kano government on international relations and public affairs. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.